All right, welcome back another week. We got a great podcast ahead today. We're going to talk with an 8-time state champ, should have been 9-time state champ if a team didn't. I had to start with a sorry, Derek. I had to start.
Bro. I'm used to it.
We're going to talk a lot of run and shoot because last week we had Coach Nymphius on. This week we have Coach Mickens on, and Coach Nymphius talked about how he went over to Butler to really originally learn some of that stuff. And so we're going to talk about that. Before I do that, we want to make everyone that's recruit understand you can go to myfootballcamps.com/D1 promo. If you want to get me and Mike Farrell helping you out with recruiting, you have to qualify for us to bring you on. But make sure you can DM us. You can DM me at Coach Schuman, and we can go from there, or at M Farrell Sports. Without further ado, we're going to bring in, and I'm excited to really talk about this. And for those of you out there, we'll get into it a lot, but it's also personal for Coach D, because this was one of his coaches as well. Welcome, Coach Mickens. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you, buddy.
Yes, sir.
We're excited to talk with you. To give everyone your background in football. Obviously, you've been at Butler for a long time, but let's talk about that first, so everybody knows. Then we'll dive right into it.
Yeah, I just finished last year as my 42nd year coaching high school football, almost all exclusively at Butler. I did have a 5-year run and shoot run up in West Milford with my good friend Sean Poppy. I was his offensive coordinator for 5 years in the mid-2000s, and we did some good things there too. We had a lot of great athletes on those teams. A lot of guys went on to play some solid college football. But listen, I played at Butler. Was a captain at Butler like Derek, and there's no place like Butler. I still coach high school softball at West Milford High School. Campus is a half mile from my house, and been coaching high school softball for a real long time now. And I love both schools, but Butler's my home. It's where I grew up. Grew up a half a mile from the stadium. Grew up wanting to be a Butler football player, like most of us did, and I hope kids still do. But just a lot of exciting things going on with our program now, and as always, real proud that I've been able to hang in for 42 years and still relate to kids. And I think it's a challenge, to make sure that you stay in touch and know how your players tick and how much the game has changed. Sure. The game's changed a lot. I think we've gotten a lot smarter as coaches on how to treat our athletes and relate to our athletes. And so it's been a really good thing in the last 4 or 5 years of the changing times of social media and things like that have been pretty eye-opening, but it's also been fun. I love my players. So, if you love your players, you figure it out.
You look great. I mean, you look like you're not a day over 35.
There you go.
It's amazing. Butler keeps you young, I guess. Butler.
Absolutely.
You got to wear a lot. He wears a lot of hats over there. Keeps him in shape.
Running on the blue turf makes you look faster anyway. So
yes.
There's no what makes Butler and Derek's talked about it a little, but I want to hear from you, who's played there, coached there for 42 years. What makes Butler a unique place? It's a for those of you who don't know out there, it's a small Group 1 program that's had, as in the title, obviously coaches won 8 state championships, probably been in numerous other opportunities, many semifinals, probably beyond that, right? So talk about what makes a small school like Butler such a special place.
That period, when I grew up in Butler, and Derek will tell you this, it's a mill town. I mean, if I hate to throw like a Pennsylvania reference in there, but it really was. It's like growing up and you watch that movie, All the Right Moves. We were amp pipe when we were kids. It's all we had. None of us grew up, with any kind of wealth or anything like that, and really all we had was the school, the basketball courts, the field, and and it just has a gritty flavor to it still. It hasn't really changed very much. Demographically, it's changed slightly. It's a little bit different than when I was a kid or even when Derek was growing up there, but not too much. And just I think the through lines to some of our players. There's a huge tradition at the school. The one thing I could tell you, I've worked for 6 head coaches at Butler High School right now, and no more finer custodian of the tradition and Butler football than Jason Luciani, who grew up in Pompton Lakes, played for Pompton Lakes. His dad was the head coach at Pompton Lakes, so it's no different. Butler and Pompton Lakes are mirror towns when it comes to that. And I just think our embracing of the past and keeping the traditions alive. We have alumni days. We honor our great teams. We bring people back every year. And I just think that it's a special place, too, because we try to make it that way. A Friday night at Butler High School with all the traditional pomp and circumstance that go along with it, the pregame march. If we win, we go to the Rock. That hasn't changed in years. The marching band, the team. We play at the middle school. We walk to the high school. If we win, we give out. It's a game ball give out. And the whole school and community goes there. And if you're a young football player, we invite our junior program to every single Friday night game. They're all on the sideline. They create a tunnel for our kids to come out into. So if you're one of those kids, who the hell wouldn't want to play for us, right? That's how I look at it. So, we've always been conscious, no matter who the head coach has been there. We've always been conscious of the people that, what's been going on in the past, right? And, you don't win 8 state championships in the time that I've been there if you're not doing stuff like that. And another thing, I'll tell you what's going on at Butler right now. There's, other than Coach Luciani, who's from Pompton Lakes, and my son who played at West Milford, he might as well be a Butler guy because he grew up around it his whole life. He did. There's not a guy on the coaching staff that didn't play for us. So that's really important too. We have a good young coaching staff, and the through line to all of them is that they all played for us. And that makes a big difference. It makes a big difference.
I think that makes a huge difference. I think also, having been up there, it's in a unique spot where you can really kind of continue a lot of your traditions. It's not, quote unquote, an easy place to get to. If so the people who grew up there, there's a lot of input that's going to continue to be involved there. You're not going to, people aren't going to drive through and make that turn and go up 23 and say, this is where I'm going to necessarily move right now. So, but I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying as a positive, meaning that you're able to build a community over a long period of time, which I think is very unique in New Jersey. Very, very unique in New Jersey, because obviously I live in one of those, I grew up in one of those towns that you got every highway running through it, right? So Saddlebrook, where, you have people from the town, but the town's turning over every 20 years, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
People are moving out. They're going to where it's located. That's just going to happen, right? And you're going up and down the Parkway or the Turnpike. That's naturally going to happen up and down those major roadways. But 23 is one of those older roadways. It's been around for a long time, but is not necessarily near the major roadways. And I think it creates a unique, and you got to go up the hill. It's a unique atmosphere that, and it's still, by the way, close enough to everything too. You're still right over there, Passaic County. You're right near all the city areas. It's a very, very unique place. Am I right on that as an outsider looking at it?
And we're trying to make it even more unique.
Okay.
Fun fact: I'm the president of the Education Foundation in town.
Does a ton, Coach. Absolutely.
I was thank God, I owned a car dealership in town. So from where I came from to where I ended up being a Ford dealer in town, and Ford, if you're a Ford dealer, you're based in the community. And my wife and I just decided years ago, when the school was in a little bit of trouble, back, 2012, 13 for not for their own fault because of 2% caps and, defunding of some things. My wife and I both graduated from the school and we were young kids. We didn't have anything. And we really worked hard like we were told to do. And long story short, we ended up owning a car dealership and it happens to be in our hometown. So it was really, I thought, our obligation to try to make our community better. And, when you own any kind of business, people are always looking to you for charitable things. And I just decided to make the Butler and Bloomingdale school systems the focus of my charities. And we started an education foundation that in 2016, the schools were not like they are now. We're going to be in the top 50 small schools in the state very soon. We're on the 2024 watch list. And that's because we found a unique way of taking private money and put it into public education. And I'm really proud to say that our Butler and Bloomingdale school districts, there is a robotics lab and technology at all of our schools from K through 12. And we're embarking on a $14 million renovation of the school starting in June, which is going to be all the new chemistry labs and bio labs and all the things that we're building. But the centerpiece of what we're doing in that renovation is our foundation has raised enough, and we're on a mission to raise enough money for our school broadcast center. So it's going to be Bulldog TV on Friday nights. And that's the next thing we're going to do to, make our little school, important. So as far as the football program goes, we really felt like we had to attack what our kids get to stay in town as opposed to somebody leaving to go somewhere else. Right. So I want to make it really unattractive for one of our players to go to, a parochial school or even to a tech school in our area. Right. So, it's kind of like, where the hell are you going? We don't want you to go anywhere.
There's no need.
And the other key to is that our young coaches are sprinkled through other programs. Our new defensive coordinator this year, Sean Santanero, coaches wrestling and track. My son's the head wrestling coach at the school. The Poland's brothers are the basketball coaches at the school. So we're sprinkled in every program in the school also. So there's a lot that has to do with it. It brings all together, but you can't discount the educational opportunities that you're offering. First of all the students of Butler, but your players in particular. And we've done some unique things to bring the town together also with all the music education grants that my foundation has done. And now we have, an award-winning marching band at our school. We were the Group 1 champion last year in marching band, and it might not sound like a lot, but we didn't even have a marching band 10 years ago. So there's a lot of things that we've done to improve the whole experience of a student coming to Butler High School. And we've kept some players. We've kept some wrestlers that are football players that could have gone elsewhere. So we've done a really good job with that. But you can't just say, well, I'm recruiting my own players. You do, but what are you offering them? What do you offer? What's different? What are you unique about the school that they're looking into? What's going to convince their parents that, I'm already paying taxes in this town. Where the hell am I going? Right. So you have to have that first. You can't start with, I'm just going to recruit my own kids and we have a great program and we won 8 state championships. That's not always going to be the whole big thing, right? You have to,
and it shouldn't be. The
focus
focus
should be
the education,
that, right?
Yeah, and the focus should be the education. That's what's important, right?
So in the last 10 years, we've been successfully keeping our players in town for every sport. And
done a great job of that.
We think it's because of what we're doing with the foundation, and now that we've rolled into our superintendent is nothing short of a genius. I love the guy. He has a vision. He works his vision every day. Butler's his home. He's not looking to go anywhere else. So we don't have a stepping stone superintendent in place. And, everything just seemed to really come together around some hard work that we did. And, really proud of that. And then, the football part's the fun part. That's the fun part.
Right.
You got to put the foundational hard work in to make sure your players stay in your town. It's really just that simple.
Well, I think it's amazing. And you're taking care of people from Butler. And that's one of you, like, obviously, because Derek works with me and And I mean, I feel like I know more about Butler than I ever would have ever imagined, right? But that's that pride, right? Like that's that pride of Butler and what the unique aspect of it. It's really amazing, and obviously it translates to the football. I'm sure it translates in every facet of the town. But football becomes that's all. You know, it really reminds me of it's a smaller version, but not the movie, but the show Friday Night Lights, right? Yeah. So it reminds me of it. Obviously, those are big Texas towns, but like it reminds me of a smaller version of that. How everybody's very invested in the success of the players in the town, the coaches in the town. There is an expectation of success.
Absolutely.
And if there's a year that Butler isn't as successful as normally it is, I'm sure people are like, "Hey, what's going on? What's going to happen next year?" And
maybe outside the town, it never happens inside the town. And
okay,
I'll tell you why. I really will tell you why. Is that winning is an absolute byproduct of what we do inside of our program, right? People, in society now. Listen, it just is what it is. People decide, what's good just by how many wins and losses you have during the season.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that's one way of defining it. That's not where we start, and that's not our end goal, right? It's when you walk in to our complex the first day when you're a 14 or 15-year-old freshman, you're accepted into our program by listen, we had a 6'5", 318-pound all-state offensive and defensive tackle this year, Jason Murray, right? And who hung out with all the freshmen that came in, and one of Jason's best friends on our football team was one of our freshman football players this year. And the reason that is because that's how they treated Jason when he was a freshman that never played football before when he came in, right? So we like you to come into our program as a young man and leave a grown man, and be prepared for everything that is going to come your way. And that comes with accountability. You can't have leadership, and you can't have a program, and you can't expect things without everyone being accountable, from Coach Luciani down to the ball boy. Everybody's accountable, and we hold each other accountable, and we practice hard, and we push each other and support each other. And we could have and Derek will tell you this. When Derek played for us, we used to go at it in practice. We had dudes on both sides of the ball. So, when we practiced, live on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, it was as good of a conference game as that you were going to play on Friday night or Saturday. So, that, and it got a little testy sometimes, and it gets a little testy between me and one of my best friends in the world, Coach Myers, who was our defensive coordinator for years. We used to light it up in practice. But, the one tradition of Butler that's still there that never changes is that, you shake hands after practice every day. We call it getting everybody. And that means that, if I got on you as a coach in practice, I'm hugging your ass, right, as soon as practice is over, right? So that's how we do things there. So it's, if you win 4 or 5 games in a season, I don't feel like that's a loss. I feel like that's, if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing every day, there's reasons why you win 4 or 5 games. I mean, we won 4 games in 2021 and made it to the state playoffs because we started 6 freshmen.
Yep.
Okay. And, we won the 2 games that we needed to win to get in the playoffs. Right.
That's how it's always been. It's always been.
And that team became the 2022 team that was 7-3. That became last year's team that's 9-2. So all that stuff's not an accident, right? It's not an accident. That's a program. Right. And we're really proud of that. And we're really proud that those 6 freshmen that started for us in 2021 are grown ass men right now for the 2024 season. So, and that's how you do things. And I just think that it all really depends on how you judge winning and losing. In our program, you got, and guys talk about this, but we really do it, right? You got to go to class every day. You got to be on time every day. And we have a really unique situation in Butler. It's a small school, right? If you're coming late to school more than a couple times a week, everybody knows about it. So you can't hide, right? And it's also, you just can't get away with that in our program, right?
Nope.
It's not going to stand. So accountability
Yep.
is something that still will follow you through life, right? I was never a school teacher. I was always a business person. My last job, I had 200 employees. There's two things that bothered me. You're not coming to work on time, and then you tell me why you can't come to work on time. Right?
We talk about it all the time, Dave.
Those are the two things that always bother me. So it's the same thing with practice. If you can't get to practice, you need to tell us why you can't get to practice, and we got to make sure that we can get you there on time, right? So you can't win until you have accountability, right? People talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, but it still hasn't changed.
No.
Well, that idea of creating long-term success for your players, right? Beyond football, that ends up translating into success on the field. And that's a big thing. I think people put the cart before the horse on that, right? And they put winning in front of success of the overall players. But if you're not creating opportunities for them to succeed in what they want to be, what they want to do, not just as part of football, but beyond football, and holding them, like you said, accountable. That's a word that people today, it drives me nuts.
They just throw it around like
they don't know. Well, they don't understand it. They don't understand it. Like if you tell, we'll go outside of Butler for a second. You tell a kid outside of Butler, right, that you want them to be accountable. I guarantee you, a lot of times they're going to look at you with like you have multiple heads, because that word is not a word that's used. And when it's used, you're right. It's thrown, like Derek's right. It's thrown around, but it's not enacted properly with kids today, and they don't understand exactly what that means. I think that's a really great point. And then the other thing that I want to emphasize.
Football games,
yeah.
Guys? I mean, what wins football games? Discipline.
Right.
You can't have discipline without a disciplined football team that's accountable and doesn't turn. We were plus 19 last year in turnover ratio.
That's unbelievable.
Right. So, but you win 9 games and make it to a section final because you're plus 19. Right. But you don't just become plus 19. Right.
It's a process.
You can stand up in front of a bunch of kids and say, listen, we can't turn the ball over. Let's go to practice. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but see, that's what I'm saying. There's clinics, there's YouTube, I'm going to a clinic tonight, right? I still go to clinics because I still learn things, right? You still have to go and learn. Somebody asked me 2 weeks ago, what are you doing here? Well, I'm here to learn, right? There's always something going on, but you have to practice discipline, you have to practice accountability, and you have to make sure that there's it's not always a stick too, it's got to be a lot of carrot right nowadays, right? So you got to find a way to make sure that you're remaining disciplined, that you're remaining accountable. And when you build a tradition in your program, guess who holds each other the most accountable?
Players.
100%.
We do.
If your if your butt is not practicing at Butler High School, you're not going to hear it from a coach.
Nope.
Okay. So those are the things that I think that you have to have in place before you can start to say, hey, we should have a great year.
I think the other thing that you brought up, which it's one of the first times I've ever heard, I think it's the only time I've ever heard anyone talk about it like this, is at the end of practice, everybody's shaking hands. I don't want to just skim over that, because that to me is like practices get testy, and not just players. I'm talking about the coaches. Maybe the coaches more importantly, honestly, because they're the more likely ones to hold grudges than the kids. The kids usually it's over for them, right? And I think that I'm talking about all the way up to the NFL. They can learn from that kind of a thing, because that makes a big difference. When you see divisiveness on staffs, it's usually because one person misunderstands the other one, right? And it's usually opposite sides of the ball, or head coach and coordinator, position coach, like something along the line that becomes divergent. And that probably 2-second thing at the end of practice lets everybody know, hey man, we were out here competing, but I still love you. We're one family, and that's over, and we move on to the next thing, and whatever we're doing next. Talk about that.
You can't win football games if you don't compete, right? I mean, you can't win in life if you don't compete. I had to go. I didn't end up owning a Ford dealership in my own town by not competing in business. You have to compete, right? But you don't have to be a jerk when you compete. right? And I like, there's a lot of things in a game, when you practice, we used to do, when you first start coaching, you first think, if you think you're a football coach, right? Because you played football. And then, you practice a certain way, and then you don't get the results that you want on Friday night, right? And you start asking yourself, we practiced that. And that's my favorite young guy quote, we practiced that, and we always say either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen.
That's it.
Right? So you have to practice, and you have to put kids in positions so it shows up on the field on Friday night. And competing is really, it's probably besides accountability and discipline, competition is the next important thing right now in this day and age. And I will tell you where the kids are different now than when we were growing up on the street playing wiffle ball every day or whatever game we could pick a ball up on. That doesn't go on now. So natural athletic sense, I played, I'm going to give Derek a shout out here, right? So I played with Derek's dad. We were on the same team, Craig. And we played on the street our whole life. And we always had athletic sense. We would play, if cornhole was a thing back then, we'd probably try to kill each other, winning a cornhole game. Right. So, but that doesn't go on right now, right? That's not common. And I'll tell you, players with athletic sense, and I'm going to put Derek as the number one of the best players that's ever played for us was Derek Depascale. I'm not patronizing him right now. I'm just stating facts. All right. We've had a million good players come through Butler, thank God. But Derek was at the top of the list. Okay. And what made Derek great was not that he ran a 4.5, because God knows he didn't. Okay. He wasn't a big dude, right? I mean, he was what he was. But what Derek had was he had football IQ, but he also had athletic sense. Derek played free safety for me at heels at 8 yards, right? Not many people can do that because Derek knew the game. I only had one other safety ever be able to do that for me, and that was my son. Same thing, doesn't run a 4.5, but the kid knows football you're 5 steps ahead of everybody because you know what's coming. I watched Derek bait Creskill's quarterback into 2 interceptions in a state semifinal game once. It was classic. Why? Because we had watched film on the 2 routes they throw, and he knew exactly when it was coming based on formation, right? Kids don't do that now. Right? Kids don't do that now. So you have to devise a way for them to do that. And that means you can't hand them a playbook and say, hey, know the plays.
Nope.
You have to teach it different.
Correct.
We teach it different. We roll some videos and teach it for you. You know what I mean? Because that kid will look at a 3-second video.
Right.
I
mean, look, we talk about it all the time with our social media stuff. Like, clips have to be shorter because attention spans are
Sure.
where they are. But, it's also a kudos to you guys. Like, look, that was what was instilled in me in order to, hey, if you want to be good, you need to watch film. You need to learn this type of stuff. So I tell Dave all the time, like, I was so spoiled. I had amazing coaches from the time I was in 3rd grade, right? I mean, it was just the standard that was set and progressing through. And now look, you could have stayed and done your whole thing where, all right, well, this is the way we do things. This is how it is. But you've adapted with the times and gone with the new kid, right? Or the new sense of what these guys do now. And you've kind of rolled with it and been able to relate to your players. And now that's what's, sustained and continued your success.
Well, now if you want your players to be good on Friday night, from, accountability, discipline, and competing, you also have to get them involved in the game plan also.
They need to feel like they have a sense
absolutely.
of something.
I would say that, and I'm not stretching by saying this. We'll have a 3-year starter at center this year, Tyler Tortola. And when Tyler came in as a freshman, I wouldn't have bet you anything that he was ever going to even play football for us. And he was a 3rd brother of 3. The 2 older brothers that played for us, pretty good players. But, Tyler had to make himself a better athlete. He had to work hard. He slimmed himself down. He worked hard in the weight room, ends up starting for us as a sophomore. Well, now this year, Tyler be a 3-year starter at Butler at center. And one of the best students at a game I've ever been around because we involve him in the game plan. Tyler sets the protections. He's part of the protection a breakdown every week. He
Right.
sets whatever our run scheme is. He's on the defense. The kid knows football. Like, if he doesn't end up coaching, I'll be disappointed, right? But that's because when Tyler was a sophomore, when he started for us as a sophomore, we taught him how, basically to be the student of the game. I had a funny situation happen for me. As you know, I'm sure everybody knows who Scott Brown was, and
Gatorade Player of the Year.
Somehow God blessed me to be able to coach Scott Brown for the time that I did. And he's coming off the field after a game one night, and one of the local reporters stopped to ask me about the fact that that Scott had, pretty much checked me off on just about everything I had called that night. And they asked me how I felt about that. And I said, well, who the hell do you think taught him that? Right.
Right.
So that's the point. The point is that if you want your players to be good, you don't coach robots, and one of the things that I loved about the run and shoot offense, really isn't the X's and O's. It was the fact that I was able to teach the game backwards. So you had to learn about defense before I could teach you the offense, right? So that was the beauty of the old school West Texas spread that we brought to New Jersey, because you had to teach secondary and box play, which I still do. I just had a meeting with my quarterbacks last Friday. We go out for mozzarella sticks and Coke, and we teach it backwards, right? If you don't know what coverage you're looking at based on tendencies and how guys line up, there's only 11 guys on a football field, right? You can only line them up a certain amount of ways. So that's what we teach first, right? Then you can throw whatever route you want, whenever you want, right?
You got to earn that right, though.
So, I like students of the game. You can't give up on the fact that it's a little harder to develop students of the game right now.
Yes,
you can develop them, right? The only way you can develop them is making them part. You have to teach them how to watch film too. There's 4 phases of watching film, and basically, that's what we teach them. And you're not going to get a kid to sit down on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning and watch a whole game. I don't want them to watch a whole game, especially the quarterback.
Right.
I want to know what their tendency is when they change their defense. Tell me what the defense is 3rd and 5. Right? If you can tell me that, then you're prepared for the game. It doesn't matter what we run. Because that's how we practice.
No doubt. And talk about so the West Texas spread that you brought over here, which I guess became the run and shoot. Talk about that, because you guys were so far ahead of the curve. Like, I mean, I remember when I first started coaching at Saddlebrook, and obviously Glen Rock was having their run there, right?
Yep.
And we had Coach Nimpius on last week. And I remember the first time I was like, why are defenses playing them like that? Like, that makes no sense.
Oh, it was interesting. We used to get so many different looks of just like guys would be throwing out, trying whatever they could because they had never seen it before. And Coach Nimpius talked about it a little bit, right? Like,
and I had played against it against Hofstra when I was in college at UConn.
When Manny was there, yes.
And honestly, I didn't understand why we were playing it the way we were playing it.
Our background was, in 1990, we had what I still consider our original run and shoot quarterback. We just didn't know it yet. In an odd turn of events, Coach Jones was our head coach. He was also a two-time Division III All-American at Trenton State, and got drafted by the San Diego Chargers to play quarterback. And he uniquely came to me in 1989 and said, "Hey, you're going to be the quarterback coach." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, why would you make me the quarterback coach?" And it just so happened that the kid that was our quarterback then was a brother of the kid that I was a captain with in 1980 on our football team. Ken Eisenhart was my teammate. His youngest brother, Craig, who was our ball boy at the time, became our quarterback, just like, his third brother, like every other kid in Butler. The third brother came through. And I had a relationship with Craig, and I knew the offense, that we were trying to run. I'd spent a lot of time with Coach. I was coaching defense at the time. And I was happened to be coaching secondary at the time. So I was, buzzing under routes and practice every day and all the rest of the stuff that we were really so predictable at doing. And what ended up happening is Craig could sling it, right? He wasn't a big kid, but man, he could run, he could get outside the pocket. He could put defenses on the edge, which we love to do. And we had this wide receiver named Chris Bunsen that ran, probably a 4.3 40, not, untimed, but, one of the fastest kids I've ever coached.
Also scored 1,000 points in basketball.
Exactly. And if we're not taking advantage of that, right, we're kind of crazy. So we did, and I coached Craig, and we put in some, we didn't know what the hell we were doing, right? It was still based out of an I formation and things. But long story short is we threw the ball a hell of a lot more than we ever did.
Ever.
And so we beat New Providence on a post pattern with 1:30 to go in the finals in 1990 with no timeouts. That actually happened. And, then in 1991, we came in and, we thought we had a pretty, we kind of drifted back into, we had a big offensive line and a big back. So we go back to what we were doing and we won 3 games and it was really disappointing. So that winter, Coach Jones and I went out to Hofstra and it really changed my career, kind of changed my life when I met Manny Matsakis. Can't thank him enough. And he asked one question. And the one question was, raise your hand if you're still running the same offense that you ran in high school and that your coach taught you. And we went,
yeah.
And he just said to have an open mind about this. And for some reason, it just stuck. It just made so much sense to me. And it just, and timing's everything. And like we had these little sophomores that, turned into 4 Division I football players for us in 1992. We went to the finals. And the true story about going to the finals with the West Texas spread in 1992 is that I had no idea what I was doing. Looking back, we ran 8 plays and we made it to a state final. We lost to a great Roselle Park team that year in the finals, but we made it to the state finals. And my first real run and shoot quarterback was a kid named Nicky Spidell, who was a tremendous athlete. And he, at the time, threw more touchdown passes than anybody in the history of the school. It was 18 at the time when he was a student. Yeah, he threw 18 touchdown passes. We were really proud of that, and we thought we were slinging it back then,
Yeah, you were.
But we also had a tremendous what we call a super back then, Maurizio Gattaletta, who is now he's an official in New Jersey, high school football official. But Maurizio was a tremendous football player, so we built the offense around him. But so where did we arrive with this? So Manny was a disciple of many of the people that I became a disciple of. And if you really look into the history of the run and shoot, there's a couple different offshoots, a couple different ways of doing it. And whoever your mentor is or who you really believe in, I believed in the John Jenkins version of the run and shoot, which is Andre Ware and a famous guy named Jason Phillips, who used to come to my camp every year, who played at Houston and caught all of Andre Ware's passes to make him Jason was a 2-time All-American at Houston and played in the run and shoot for Mouse Davis in Atlanta and Detroit. And, ended up coaching at SMU and Baylor and a bunch of schools that sling it. And Jason was always gracious enough to come to our camp every year. But I really became a disciple of the John Jenkins, Jack Pardee version.
Houston, right?
Yep, Houston. Yep.
And, that's really where the Houston Gamblers, that's really what I believe in. And then it morphed into Manny being at Texas Tech.
Yep.
And I just fell in love with Mike Leach. God rest his soul. He was a good man. One of the smartest people I've ever met, just as a person. He was also one of the kindest human beings you ever wanted to meet in your life.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I got to meet him, and he said, "So what do you need from me, Coach?" And I said, "I really love your screen game," and it was on my computer the next day. Right, the head coach at Texas Tech. That's a factual story, and learned a lot from Coach Leach. Learned a lot from June Jones. Really studied June Jones's way of teaching quarterbacks, right down to the grip. I still teach the grip the way June Jones I went to a clinic once with June Jones, and I think I was drooling in the front row, and he kind of noticed it, so he gave me some time after. And I still teach the grip revolution for a quarterback, and because it doesn't matter what size your hands are, and I end up generally coaching 5'8" guys.
Yep.
Butler. It's just
Yes, you do.
Just my legacy, we
You've
call
maybe
it,
had what, 1 or 2 quarterbacks over 6 foot?
yeah,
Maybe.
maybe
Maybe.
5'8" coal miners, man. That's what we call them. So
Yeah,
so I that's who I learned from, and I've never drifted too far away from Coach Matsakis. We're still great friends. I talk to him all the time. We love to talk football. His brother Louis just got the head football sprint coaching job at Caldwell University. So we're excited about that. And of course, I coached with the madman himself, Jimmy Matsakis at Butler for 5 years.
That's an experience. If anybody's going to
do the funnest years of my life.
That's an experience. I don't care what anybody says.
We did some crazy shit. I'll just tell you that right now.
I mean, look, Dave's known because I've coached with Jimmy. Jimmy's been around me forever. But it's like, Dave, like whatever you do, you're okay, dude. Because believe me, we've done something. It's all right. We're good. It's
but
just
I've never really drifted. I've never drifted too far away from our roots, and and again, God bless. Coach Luciani has been been with us since 1997.
I mean, you think about it. I played my entire career, right? Coach Luciani was there. Coach Mickens was there. Like the stability on the staff and the fact that even back then it may have been different faces, but it was still former players. It was still guys that understood the tradition. And then, believe me, if an outsider comes in to coach, they're real quick to jump on board to be like, oh, this is different. This is kind of how we do it, right? And that's just the way it is.
We've really been able to keep a lot of the DNA of the offense over the years. Listen, things have changed. People used to line up in 4-4 cover 3 against us. It was just ridiculous, right? You just, I didn't have to do much, when that sweatshirt, 4 verticals, I should have had that back in 93 and 4 with those teams, like, what are you running here, coach? Well, I think we're going to go 4 verticals here.
Well, listen,
let my guys run down the field, right?
Coach Schuman's a track guy too, right? So when we talk about that 94 team where all 4 receivers were the 4x1 team and you're talking gone, right? Like, and that's, so he understood all that and he knew of those guys.
So in true tradition, Coach, you're going to love to hear this. I don't even know this, all breaking news. We just hired Coach Bobby Brown, who was a slot receiver on that team that ended up going to Montclair State. And Coach Brown was at Scott's brother, but I always tell Scott
he was better.
He was better.
Hell yeah. He played both sides of the ball the whole season. Scott only played defense when the playoffs started.
That's correct. Strategically.
Yes. You're talking about a Gatorade Player of the Year throwing 50 touchdowns in a season and how he's going to play outside backer when the playoffs started.
Yeah.
Like,
but Bobby's
welcome to Butler.
It was great last year. We played Verona in the state playoffs. I flip on the film on Saturday afternoon, and I'm watching what they do on offense. And, like the kid's a run and shoot guy, right? You can see I'm watching the routes. I'm watching it convert, and this is at Verona High School. And they had a real good quarterback last year to kick it. He could sling it real well. And they had a great slot receiver, all-state Super 100 kid. He was the real deal. We played him. Have a lot of respect for that young man. I forget where he's going, but he's going somewhere decent to play, which he should. And but just watching that film, I'm going, wow, I'm pretty proud of the guy. Like I could see, you see the DNA in all the games. And at the end of the year, of course, Coach Batty is no longer the coach there, and Bobby was a free agent for about 30 seconds.
That's a good hire, bro.
So we called him and we hired him, and it's going to be just a tremendous addition to our staff. I know we're going to run great routes. We're going to be disciplined. We're going to all our route stems are going to be perfect because that's the kind of player he was.
And I was fortunate.
We're pairing him with our inside receivers coach Jason Polans, who played for us. That I know Coach D doesn't like hearing it saying Coach Polans one of the best wide receivers we've ever had too.
Listen, I was okay on the receiver side. That wasn't the forte. I'd rather just hit somebody.
One of the unique things in my coaching career, and I don't mean it's anything other than the fact that we won a state championship in 2018, and I'm going to totally admit to you that I cried when we won, and it really came down my face in an emotional way because I never thought I'd have a chance again, right? Never thought I'd coach that long. Never thought that, everything would line up perfect for us on that night that we beat Park Ridge. And
well, Dave, that was Evan Smith. We've had Evan Smith.
Oh, yeah.
And, again, how do you not talk about Butler football, not talk about Evan Smith, another New Jersey State Player of the Year, another student of the game. Kid just had a tremendous career at Castleton. He ended up being a captain there. Evan's brother's our quarterback now.
Yep.
Okay.
Next in line.
Yeah, and he's a dude, man. And
dude, he can sling it, bro. He's got an arm.
And you talk about a student at a game. If I text him in class right now, he texts me back about something about football, But yeah, he's a student at a game. Waited his turn this year.
Yes, he did. I give him credit for that. A lot of kids in that situation, coach, and that's just a credit to the program, the tradition. Because look, he's a kid that probably had opportunities to go other places and kind of could have done other things and played a little sooner. But, no, I'm a Butler guy. Brother went here. Family's here. This is what I want to do. And, this is going to give me the best opportunity to kind of go and do what I want to do with life.
And we have a rule at Butler. I sat down with Dave and our sophomore quarterback last week. We have a really good incoming freshman quarterback. Sophomore quarterback is, I'm friends with his grandfather. True story. And hey, listen, Evan, you're trying to take David's job.
Yep.
That's simple as that. That's how we roll. And David, hey, listen, we just had a 3-year starter at Butler. Bobby Batapede. Bobby's older brother Alfred was one of our captains, so it's kind of a legacy thing.
That's how it works.
Bobby grew up around our program, ball boy, whole 9 yards, And Bobby was just a tremendous competitor. He knew David was competing with him. He competed with him every day in practice. It's not like David didn't get reps because he did.
Right.
David got reps. David competed. And Bobby Bobby competed back, which was great. And as a result, the kid, he's all Group 1 this year. He's all conference. He's all those things. And it's because he competed every day for his job, and I think that we've created that situation there. And,
There's also always been competition.
We've also done this too, is that, we feel like, I want Evan Croker to be ready to play quarterback at Butler High School because we feel like we have a state championship competitive team this year. Right.
Yeah.
And, if David Smith, God forbid something happened to him,
that guy's got to be ready to go.
I don't want the season to be over.
Correct.
Right.
Which is, and it's another thing that, and Dave and I relate because we both played Group 1 football. There's not many of those, just numbers wise in general, to even say that you feel comfortable putting a backup in the game to go win the game is on a different level, right? Your numbers in general, you just don't have enough of those guys. I mean, look at Dave, Dave did everything, running back, free safety, just like I did you know what I mean? Some of these guys never leave the field, and it's just, so when you have the opportunity, and you're talking about competition within practice, right? Those younger guys at some point are going to have to see important snaps, right? Critical moments in a game. Guy's helmet comes off, that guy might be a sophomore that never played at all, but he's got to go in now and make that crucial block on 3rd and 4 to make a first down to keep the drive going. And if you're not prepared for that, or you're not, if you don't do that stuff in practice, a lot of these coaches nowadays, I see it, and they're so enamored with, we got to get the reps for all these guys. And these guys got to run the plays. You got to work your twos. You got to work your guys that are eventually going to play. They're important.
Our quarterback room is really solid right now. It was Bobby, Evan, and David last year. And, Evan was a freshman last year. He's a big kid. He's going to be over 6 foot. Thank the Lord.
Oh, you got one.
And he's got some arm, kid's got big arm talent, right? So, I'm not, and he's a very smart young man. He's in school in David and Evan are both, 4.0 kids in their class.
Yes. They're smart dudes.
not like you're not working with something, right?
Right.
And I uniquely, Coach Luciani and I were lucky enough this year too that I had a quarterback play for us in the 2014-15 range that also coaches basketball at the school now. Danny Pollins, and Danny was in my quarterback room for 4 years, and Danny's my he's in my quarterback room now. We just hired him as a assistant coach, and he's going to coach the quarterbacks with me. So it's just again, we're trying to make that what we're trying to make it, but always tell our quarterbacks to practice like you're the worst guy on the
You're
field.
going to be the guy.
But you got to play like, LeBron James on Friday night, right? So you have to have a cockiness about you. You have to have some swag. David is not short on swag. I can tell you that right now.
He's different than Evan, that's for sure.
He's got some goals, and I love it. But we have a freshman coming in that I'm pretty excited about too. So, the quarterback position is everything for us at the school. I like to think if you're the quarterback at Butler High School, it's something special. Yeah, because it has been over the years.
You're talking about 3 New Jersey Gatorade Players of the Year, from a small Group 1 school. Like, there's a legacy there, man. You play quarterback at Butler, it's just different.
Talk about because I learned this from DJ, and I don't know if this came from you guys, but I was always big on having at least a quarterback in every class, and making sure that they get the reps, and always even at my varsity level, taking one of those guys who were like a jack of all trades guy. I would start off, and other coaches other than Derek, when Derek was my assistant, every place I've ever been, when I would line up and I'd have 8 guys playing quarterback, and they're like, well, he's our running back. I said, yeah, but you know what? Once they know this, they can play everything else. If they're an athlete, they can play everything else, right? And DJ taught me that. I mean, DJ would have he would start off the season, and you might have one of your starting running backs as one of the quarterbacks. So we never were in a situation where if a guy went down, we didn't have a solution, And I remember this when I was at Powell Park and we were on our run of really good teams. My quarterback who ended up going to Villanova, he got, I don't know, it was against Weehawken. He got something happened early in the game. He got knocked out. And the kid who went in was our running back. He was our quarterback 2 years earlier when we had nobody, but he was like an athlete. And he goes in and he runs like our zone read power play. And he pulls it, takes off for 55 yards for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, that quarterback's helmet was in. I said, what are you doing? Aren't you hurt? He goes, he's not taking my job. That ain't happening. Right? But it was only because he was our running back. I mean, it was just because he always took reps at quarterback. When we went our quarterback period, he did the stuff with the quarterback.
You got to prepare.
Talk about how you develop guys from that standpoint, because I know you guys really kind of were the first on that system.
So I'll give you some Butler secret sauce here. So this is, we've never strayed away from this, and Derek knows this, that, I coached Scott Brown when he was a little boy. He was, 4 feet tall. And
middle school, slinging it in 5th grade, dude.
All the great ones, we talk about the kids that won state championships or Gatorade Players of the Year. We had Kevin Maxwell through 25 touchdown passes. We had Michael Walter through 44 in his career. We had Dennis Ferrerio, 2-time All-State guy, was the original 5 wide receiver quarterback, guy, so
went to Monmouth, finished his career at Monmouth.
The secret sauce was always that we coached them when they were little. We still do. And we really have some secret sauce now because our 2009-10 quarterback, Peter Brand, now coaches our young quarterbacks at Butler. Peter was he was straight up dude quarterback,
Freak.
Big guy that could throw the ball. And, threw all those balls to, Anthony Gizzilli, who played in the NFL.
Yep.
And so
finished a career at Rutgers. He's got the most
he's down there, every Tuesday night now with little guy quarterback, camp, from, when they could walk to when they get to us to 8th grade. And now listen, there's just a couple things that, we try not to interfere. We try to support on that level. We always do. But, if you really want to be a quarterback at Butler High School, there's certain things that, that we want you to be able to do. And, hey, listen, my preference is pick the best athlete in every class when they're little. You kind of know who the kids are and, and put the ball in their hand. It's really just that simple. It's and then take it from there. Take your shot. If you got two good guys, take your shot and, put the ball in their hand. We do a very similar thing with West Milford softball. If you don't think we have kids in second grade not pitching right now, you're out of your mind because we do,
Well, I mean, look, and we're now like, it's kind of what we do, right? And Dave's really starting to open his eyes and see it now because he's got a young son who just played his first year of tackle, right? And I talk to him all the time about, the coaches that are surrounding him and the development that goes into it, and make sure he's getting coached the right way about, on and off the field and doing all that other stuff. And, again, like I say all the time, I was so spoiled because I was coached not only by my dad, but from coaches that surrounded the program that were on a high level. When I got to college at Sacred Heart, I was so ahead of the curve because of how I was coached, and not just X's and O's and football stuff, but like, hey man, like you got to work to do what you got to do, what you want to get. And have I come from another program, I don't know if I would have been in the same position or even had those opportunities had I not been coached from the time I was able to put cleats on.
I'll tell you something that probably the guys that run quarterback schools all over the place don't want me to really say. But I'm going to say it. There's some natural ability to throw in the football. And if you don't possess that,
good luck
at a young age, it's probably not going to work out really good for you. Quick story about Derek's teammate, Mike Volter. Michael went to Coastal Carolina. He was a baseball pitcher. He threw the ball 93 miles an hour in high school.
Stud.
I was at a camp. DJ Nymphius was there, Manny Matsakis, all the guys from, I think Manny was at Hofstra at Emporia State at the time. Yeah. And they all came up for the camp in the summer, and Volter's warming up, and he just had a straight up cannon. He was a big dude with a perfect 2 o'clock arm slot. Like, if you wanted to make a video of mechanics, this guy was the guy, set up inside the frame. I'll never forget Coach Matsakis saying to me, "Man, Coach, you did a great job with that kid." And I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I saw him throw the football, and I just said, hey, pretty good, dude. Do these throws over." I didn't want to screw it up. Like, I didn't do shit with that kid. He threw the ball so natural. It was just don't screw it up.
I think you bring up a really good point. So all these kids nowadays want to go to a quarterback coach, and I had talked to Derek about it, and Derek gave me some great advice on this. I said, I like if a kid's got a good natural throwing motion, I don't want anyone messing with him until he's maybe like in puberty almost. You know what I mean? Where you might be working on the finer tuning things of a quarterback. But if he's got a nice throwing motion and all you have to teach him is tell him throw it harder, throw this with a little touch, those kind of comments. Why send him someone to break him down? I think it doesn't make sense. It reminds me of like when I see a guy playing point guard in basketball and he's got a natural way of passing the ball, and guys try to tell him don't do this and don't do that, and they take away that just natural vision, right? That natural ability. Like, let them develop that first, long before we mess with any mechanics.
Yeah. Well, Derek knows this about me is that I used to run a quarterback camp, for a really long time, and I coached some great kids that were great before they came to me, by the way. Yeah. And one of the prerequisites of my camp is that I wasn't going to take somebody's money, just me, that. Yeah, I wanted to watch your son throw first before I could say if I'm going to be able to work with him on the things that I believe in, like throwing the ball with your feet. That's just that's the way I teach, right? But if you didn't have some natural throwing motion to your mechanic, or on the other hand, if somebody either never corrected something that you were doing wrong when you were little, right. I see it in softball, right? I got to go in the gym next week for tryouts. Well, if you've been 3/4 in it in little girl softball for your whole life, I'm not fixing this.
No.
You're not fixing that when you're 15 or 16 years old.
Nope, you're already
not.
past that point.
Right? I mean, and some of the guys that I had that even at Butler that didn't have tremendous throwing mechanics, I mitigated the problem by just giving them some little things to make their motion better.
Great
or
point.
In the case of some of the guys who will remain nameless here that didn't have the best mechanics that played for me, we created a game plan that really suited their throwing style, right? So
you cater to your players,
right? We've had 45 different iterations of our offense, based upon kind of that. I'll say to Coach L, I don't think we can do that from that launch point, right?
Right.
Just based on this guy. So, and he's a mad scientist. So we know all of a sudden we're doing this and it works, right? Because it's just about changing the launch point. Like I always tell my coaches, they want to throw these routes, in breakers, deep shot this way against a too high safety. Okay. Come here a minute, stand behind that giant ass offensive line we have right now. And my 5'8" guy can't see that shit. Right.
What do I tell you every time, Dave? What have I told you?
Those are the little things that we kind of work on now. But getting back to the mechanics a little bit is that, I just sat through I went to a clinic a few weeks ago, and I sat through I thought the quarterback coach who runs a quarterback school, thought the guy he did a great job. I was taking notes, right? I was taking notes, right? Notes are in there.
Some things never change.
And he offered me, a free book if I went online, and I went online and I got the free book, and everything he was saying was, spot on. But the only thing I'm saying back is that you can't teach that to every kid.
Correct.
Right.
Right. And we talk about it all the time. Like right, Dave, like even in your program, right? Like, hey man, I need to see you first. And then, okay, maybe we can do something else. And I think that's the problem now with society, the parents, right? These youth guys it's like, look, man, you just don't have this.
Yeah.
You know what? That doesn't mean that it's the end of the world.
There's a couple things that drive this. Here's a couple things that drive this. Do you think Tom Brady's son's going to play in the NFL?
No.
You know why? Because he's 50% his mom, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's sometimes where some of the better. I played high school football and I was this, or I played in college or something like that. And listen, it's all kidding around the side. You get genes from both parents, and if it's not. True. And it's not the same genes. Sometimes, listen, in my case, thank God my wife was an athlete because I sure as hell wasn't. So, if my son has done anything like he did in his career, it sure as hell didn't come from me. It came from my wife. That's a fact. So, it's one of those things where, it doesn't always equate that way also too. And I think people struggle with that a little bit, and that's okay. But, you just have to make sure that quarterback play at Butler High School is our whole program in a nutshell, right?
Right.
We've made, basically our program around that guy, right?
It's always going to center around that guy, right?
And listen, and I don't think we're way off. I don't think you can win at any level right now without somebody – that has the ball in their hands on every play. And let me tell you where it shows up if you like I always used to talk to guys, and I have nothing. Listen, believe it or not, there's a lot of wing T elements to our offense.
Tons.
Right? We run jet sweep. Yep. We run, counter dash was one of our staple plays when Derek was in high school. Counter dash is what it is. It's counter, right? It's a triple option off a counter.
Yep.
Counter Delaware play.
It's a counter with a pull.
I'm a big believer. I think the Delaware offense has some great stuff, and we still use some of it. Derek will tell you, I've been running midline trap since 1989, and midline trap out of our offense. It's a Delaware concept, right? Yep. And we run midline trap right down to the quarterback steps, off the Delaware concept. However, the one thing I never really liked that Delaware offensive coaches told me that the quarterback didn't have to be a good player.
And listen, we've had Coach Sadlock on, we've had Coach Gallagher on, right? And we've talked about all this stuff. You know, it's like when they say
I think
that,
they're wrong on that, because the better the player is,
you
the
can't
better
win
it
a
is,
state
the more you can do
championship
it.
without throwing the football.
Right. Right.
Sorry, you know.
There's no doubt about it. Talk about too the I think the unique thing in the run and shoot was how you move and manipulate the pocket. And you talked about, like, hey, you don't want your 5'8" quarterback to try and split the two safeties because you can't see them, right? How you use the half roll, the full roll to really manipulate the pocket, get guys out in some level of space. So they have, first of all, it shortens the field a little bit for them too, right?
Yeah.
But also it allows them to get out in space where they might be able to find easier windows to throw through.
It's really changed for us, though. I'm a big soft roll guy. That's how I taught my quarterbacks.
Inside leg of the tackle.
So Derek actually played some quarterback. I made that mistake. I'm just kidding.
But I was trying to get out of that spot.
But we had
those were our best battles, though.
Without a doubt. I'll get into that in a second.
I got thrown out of a cabin one time.
I'll tell you what I really don't.
Not physically.
What I don't like right now, believe it or not, is, the game's turned into a shotgun offense.
Under center, baby.
And even though we do it, and I bought in, I'm not a huge fan. And I'll tell you why. The accuracy of the shotgun snap changes the quarterback's eyes.
Correct.
And, my whole existence as a quarterback coach on the soft roll was these, right here, right? It's pre-snap, post-snap, right? Pre-snap, post-snap, and snap in your head, pre-snap and post-snap. Am I reading the corner? Am I reading the strong safety? Am I reading the robber? Whatever it was, we had keys, big number, it's cover 3 or man. Little number, it's some kind of funnel. So we had keys to look at with my quarterbacks. And I still teach it that way, but I really can't teach it that way because we've changed the eye level of the quarterback. Because if the shotgun snaps at my feet, I just lost my ability to read what I used to teach from under center, right? So the soft roll and head snap was really the way that we used to teach it. And the reason why we did that is because, if I'm soft rolling and I cross the level, that inside linebacker is getting his coverage now, right? Mm-hmm. The minute I do this, right, he's got to drop. And the best part about the offense was designed for you to think I wanted to throw it on every down, and it was really because I wanted to run it on every down, right? So, I wanted to empty the box because you had to cover me. Right? Exactly. Well, I wanted a 5-man box, and then we would run the shit out of the ball.
Right.
Kind of like we do now against 6. We just figured it out.
I mean, listen, and I tell Coach all the time, like, every year I played, there was a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, but to your coach, your original question is that we always like to move the launch point. We call it 70 degree, 30 degree, and it really depended on the defense that we were playing. And that was really just you were setting up inside hip of the tackle 6 yards deep, simple launch point, right? That was more for protection purposes. But at that launch point too, I avoided a lot of this inside traffic, right? If I'm avoiding twists, I'm avoiding a lot of things. And the way teams really started to decide that they wanted to really defend us was, obviously with edge pressure, which really made us focus on how we're going to defeat edge pressure. So we did, that was the next phase of our offense, was how are we going to protect against edge pressure, and then how are we going to defeat edge pressure, which we still use the same concepts, believe it or not, because again, you can only line up so many ways, right? Right. But it's all about launch point. It still is, it still is. I mean, we call it a little bit different now. We're in shotgun, pretty much all the time. We do some under center stuff. We started getting back to it a little bit. We have a couple packages that we do go under center just as key breaks, and really because some of the things that we've done have really worked out well for us doing it again. And but we still have launch points. You know, like if you don't think I'm going to move the launch point with David Smith, we're gone. You know, because he is who he is. He's not 6'3", and you know,
Right.
you got to move him. You know, you got to move him.
It's really interesting, and I think the box thing too is such an interesting deal. I always chuckle because I was in college. I played defense, but I always chuckle having coached the offensive side of the ball for such a long time that when guys would tell me, "Oh, you know, we have a 7-man box," and I'm like, "No, those 2 outside linebackers, they're not in the box.
Yep.
Right.
That's a 5-man box. We're running the ball. I don't care how many linebackers you think you're playing with. Those guys are not in the box. They're outside the tackles. That's a 5-man box. I could run inside all day long, you know." So it's funny how and now obviously you see in college. This is where you're seeing a lot more where it took a long time. And to me, it sticks out in my mind when I can't remember what year it was, a few years ago, when Ohio State still had their 3 linebackers in the game. I can't remember who the national championship was against. And they got exploited over and over again. It may have been it might have been Alabama. They were getting exploited over and over again in the passing game.
And they wouldn't change.
They wouldn't change it. But he since now has
it's a little different now.
Years later, he gets those guys off the field. He's really playing with a nickel guy and maybe like
everybody's playing with those rover tweener.
Well, you know,
safety-ish type.
Here's what's really changed. You know, like you know, everybody runs some version of RPO now,
right.
Pretty much including us. But we had an original RPO, counter dash, back when Derek played. You know, and it was really our answer to, you know, people, you know, trying to play that edge guy, you know, in space. The real way to defeat the edge guy in space is by formation. And that's kind of what we still do. You know, we tell our slots, you know, walk that guy you got to walk him out of the box. You can't let him play both. And if he's trying to play both, then we need to throw something hot. You know, that's the run and shoot stuff that comes back to your mind. You know, we need to throw a dash route or a smoke route or something to make that guy pay, right? Because if you're going to let that guy sit out there, you know, and edge you, you know, just outside the tackle and think he's going to cover my slot,
not happening.
You're just not. That's not our offense, right? So we have to, you know, horizontal and vertical, right? Like we want you to cover. I'm sure DJ told you that last week, right?
Nope.
So you know, we want you to cover the whole field.
About finding space. Find space.
You know,
make them make a decision of where they want to put their pieces in their chess pieces, right? Make them make a decision. Don't let them play 2 areas because you didn't make them make a decision. Maybe
cover a lot of stuff.
Tighter or wider, whatever it is you're looking to do.
I'm going to force you to pick.
Force you to pick because you have in football. You have to make the defense pick because once they pick, now you know, okay, this should be there, right? And then if somehow that guy who you're making pick is that kind of a player, you can also make decisions after that too. If he's that good, right?
And I think you know, uniquely again, if you're gonna prepare your players to play on Friday night, Derek will tell you this too, is that at Butler High School, we know what your base defense is, but we practice against every possible defense because the offense converts, right? So it really doesn't matter to me. Coach Myers, we come out for practice and, you know, we still do it, you know, well, 15 plays scripted on a script. And then he would do something, you know, like off script. And I'd say, okay. And then it was on, right?
Right. And now it's going back.
If you're going to play me in a 6-man box, then we're just going to go to our 6-man box offense. And if you slide to a 5 in the mid count, then my quarterback's just going to check and throw it the other way. Right. So we do that all week because, you know, you can have a guy line up. We had a couple times this year, you know, the one thing I will say as a credit to the game is there's so much information out there right now.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And young coaches take advantage of it. And
absolutely.
I actually think coaching has improved so much over the last 20 years on what you might see on a Friday night.
Oh God.
That it's that, you know, it really keeps you on your toes, you know.
While you're still going to clinics.
Right. You know, there's a couple of young guys out there, you know, that you don't really like to line up against every Friday night because they're good coaches and you know they're going to have their kids prepared no matter what. So it's really kind of crazy not to practice against defenses that you think, you know, I like to think if a guy's a 3D team, he's going to stay a 3D team. It's hard to teach that in 3 days. But I mean, if you go back in films and he's got some, two shell roll to him, he can definitely be in a three deep zone on you on a Friday night. So just safe to say, we practice against everything during the week. It's just simpler, and that way your kids are prepared. And if you end up on that in the first drive on Friday night, we just make the simple change. Okay, well, that's what we got. Now we're going to do this.
Absolutely, it's the ultimate adaptable offense, and that adaptability is the key. I think your point was really good. That coaches know more because there is accessibility, more information.
It's the execution.
I think it's changed. That's not, and you talked about this. Now you guys do a great job with it, but it's not everywhere. Relating to the players and their needs and building that culture. So they might know X's and O's better. I agree with that. I think there are guys that you could talk football with them. When I was in high school, I don't even remember like my coaches really knowing that level in depth, right?
Just think about when you got to college. What what I mean?
Like,
how did you feel?
Much, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I think you do have that now. But I think what was great when I was a kid, they lacked maybe in knowledge. What was great was the relationship. They knew about my family situation.
Yeah, that has everything to do with it.
And that's changed a little bit. Talk about like, what you see, what are you good and bad at what you see going on now? Like things that you like, things that maybe, I don't know. I'll let you run with it, Coach.
Good. Here's the good. The good is that if you get to know the young guys on your team and you treat them with respect and they treat you back with respect, it's not much different than it was 30 years ago. We like to have relationships with our players. Derek will tell you everybody's got a nickname, right? In our program. So, that's kind of my job. But
part of it.
I listen, I refuse to think that kids are that much different now.
I agree.
I think they're as different as you let them be. And, but I also think as a coach, you have to take a couple steps in these dudes' direction now. You know what I mean? Listen, I know that's not really popular for a football coach to say this, but you got to love your guys.
Yes.
And I mean, not bullshit love.
Right.
I mean, like
not smoking mirrors, bro. Like genuinely.
Like this kid can't afford cleats. I'm buying him cleats love. Or, this kid needs a job over the summer because his family has no money. I'm going to get him a job to love. Like really love your guys, right?
Which is
because kids know bullshit. The kids know bullshit. They'll call bullshit on you.
Easy. They see right through it.
You can tell them things, but there's a lot of love in our program. Actually, I'm really proud of the fact that I coach with a great teacher, coach, human being at West Milford High School, Nicole Gwinnett. Great human.
She's great.
Academic All-American at Seton Hall and also a softball All-American at Seton Hall. And the way and what she's taught me about coaching young ladies is that one of the, we have pillars of things in our program at West Milford. And one of the pillars is love, So I think that I've, you can call me soft now or whatever you want to tell me, but I think
you're still a tough guy.
I think that you need to love your guys. And that's the handshaking after practice kind of deal, right?
Yep.
And I think you got to love your guys. And I think your guys got to know that you do love them. Like Jason Murray, big dude, trying to find a home now in college. And, Coach Luciani and I are answering every email, taking Jason everything that needs to go to. He just got into the North-South game. Yep. We're really proud of him about that. Jason Murray knows that we love him. He knows that. And he knows he's going to end up somewhere because Coach and I aren't going to stop until he does end up somewhere. And more importantly, his family knows that. So I really think that you can't take that piece of coaching and really not apply it. I don't get guys sometimes where they just miserable coaching. Why are you miserable coaching?
Right. Like why? And why are you even here if you are?
And
like,
why,
I don't get it.
I don't understand how, and listen, it starts sometimes too with, people people just generally go into teaching because they think it's cool to have the summers off,
No,
Right.
I don't really think that everybody should be a school teacher. That's coming from somebody that has, two of my children are school teachers, right? So like, don't be a school teacher unless you're gonna,
unless you love what you do.
right? What are you gonna, because there's a couple different ways of being rich, right? And money's just one of them. Wealth is there's a lot of terms that make you wealthy, and having a bunch of kids that call you coach like 40 years after they leave. Derek Depascale calls me coach every day. You don't think that that's important to me? Derek Depascale texts me more than he probably cares to, right? Because I love Derek Depascale and he knows that, right? And that's the thing. So when you get guys knowing, that you love them, that minute and 30-second drive at the end of the game to win a game like we did this year, that's just part of it. Because you know what? Those dudes don't want to let you down now, and you don't have to yell at them to do that. There's no return on screaming at kids nowadays. That's the one thing I can tell you.
Yes.
And listen, coach, you're going to see, and this too, and I'm not calling anybody out or making anything other than what it is. There's a lot of good guys in the last 4 or 5 years that aren't coaching anymore because they didn't adapt to the way they coach.
True.
Right?
Very, very true.
So Coach L and I, we call it, and we teach our young guys this too. As corny as it sounds, you're better off leading with some love.
Yep.
You really are. You got to get the guys to love you and trust you first. You got to get them to love you and trust you first. And I don't think anybody that really is successful at anything. I used to have 200 employees, right? That's a hell of a responsibility every day, right? 200 families to be responsible for every day. You got to love those people first. They got to trust you, right? Listen, we grew up when everybody's father was a hard ass, right? There was no hiding from that. His father was a hard ass and everybody else is a hard ass. And, that I never treated my son that way, and I am really proud to say that, and Derek will jump in and tell you this, if there's a finer human being on the planet than my son, I want to meet him. And I say that with a lot of pride, and I give most of the credit, if not all of it, to his mother, because my wife's just an outstanding human being, and I'm happy to say that. And I love my son, and he knows it. And the way he coaches wrestling, and the way he coaches football, it's amazing. And the way he teaches in class, he loves his guys, right? Yeah. I mean, so we want every one of our position coaches to be the head coach of their position.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's another tenet of our program.
Yep. Take ownership.
Coach Luciani does just such a great job with, you're the head coach of your position, right? Are there things that we like to see? Absolutely. But, being prepared, but more importantly, making sure that your guys are prepared, but making sure that your guys, your position group should hug you first after practice.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right. So we get that, right? You go to the other guy last, if my quarterbacks are, I coached the offensive line last year with Coach Luciani. If Tyler Tortola wasn't the first guy on my line to hug me, I'd be disappointed. Right. So we have a lot of that. And you know what? I'm proud that we love our players, and I'm proud that we talk out loud about loving each other. And I'm proud that we do that with our girls at West Milford High School too, because you can't win otherwise.
Absolutely. Adapting with the times and meeting kids where they are is a big deal. Like, you have to know each kid is different. Like, yep. It used to drive me nuts when guys would say, I treat my players all the same. I said, then you're not a good coach, dude.
You're not.
Nope.
You're not. Because every kid is different. This kid might need to be talked to a little more harshly and he can handle it. This kid, you might have to put your arm around a lot. And that's what he needs. Every kid needs something different. And your job as the coach is to figure that out. And I think that's the most important thing of ever getting any kind of performance out of an athlete is exactly what you said. To know that you care about them. They won't do anything until they know how much you care about them.
Exactly.
And that means meeting them where they are, meeting what their needs is, taking the time to understand that, and knowing that each kid is different. Like what motivates this kid in the morning is different than what motivates this kid in the morning, and knowing, okay, he might be going through something with his girlfriend or his parents at home or whatever it is. And this kid might show a brave face every single day, but there's something, lying underneath that you need to understand, right?
Yep.
Those are important things. And I think that obviously you guys get it. I'm preaching to the choir, about it. But
I didn't always get that. Where I really learned, as much on the football field was really in business, right? It doesn't change for adults.
Right.
I couldn't treat every single one of my employees the same way. And that's naive, right? Like everybody came from a different background, different cultures, different creeds, different colors, different, you name it, different religions, different everything, right? And you have to adapt to that. If you want to be good, you have to culturally adapt to, like in business, frankly, 100% unshy to say this. I always wanted to be the dude you wanted to work for.
Right.
Like I wanted my folks I wanted to be your mentor. I wanted to be the dude that you wanted to come to work for every day. It used to frighten me to be the person that you didn't like. I'm quitting, right? I can't stand that guy, right? And that really carried over into sports for me. I want to be the guy you want to play for. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be the guy. Like I don't play football because Coach Mickens is an asshole, right? I always
not all the time.
I used to be, but you really can't.
Well, you adapt.
You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy.
100%.
High school football should be a positive experience.
Right. It shouldn't be something that's going to haunt you forever.
High school sports, playing 3 sports with your friends should be what it's all about.
I agree.
And it's unfortunately, Coach, listen, it's becoming, it's billions of dollars in industry. My girls take hitting lessons too, right?
Right.
They hate the same line, and I do this to them all the time. If these don't work with these, you ain't hitting shit anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, in other words, no hand-eye coordination. You can go to all the batting lessons you want to go to, right? But, I'm not shunning any of that kind of stuff. I'm just saying that, there's just my advice to every high school athlete is to go out there and play 3 sports with your buddies and your friends and have as much fun as you can. Try to win a championship of any kind, conference, section, whatever it is, so you and your buddies can talk about it and make it bigger than it ever was 40 years later. I'm going out to dinner with my high school teammates next Thursday night.
Oh, yeah. All this
talk so much shit about it didn't happen, but we at least we still talk about it, right? So we didn't lose too many games when I was in high school either. So it was pretty cool.
That was those 82-83 teams, Dave, that Coach Nymphius was talking about that went undefeated, ran the table, just crushed everybody.
Yeah, my first 2 years coaching, I got 2 rings, and I thought that's how it was going to be. And then, 85 and 86, we won 1 game in 2 seasons, and I'm thinking about, do I really want to do this? And my mentor had to talk me off the roof because I said, maybe I'll just scout for you now. Yeah, and he said,
and then he drank the juju, and he's been there ever since.
He just said, "Hey, if you don't want to take the challenge and help me build this program back up, then
and that's all it took to make you."
And that's exactly what he said to me. Coach Jones says, Coach Jones, I have to say, in my personal life and in my business life, and every walk of my life has been probably the most influential man in my life. Totally wouldn't be where I am today in any level if it wasn't for Coach Jones. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he's a Hall of Fame person.
Great.
And I was fortunate enough to be inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2013. Probably the most humbling experience of my life. One of the most humbling experiences of my life to be with all those great guys on those plaques down at Rutgers. I think I had an advantage because when I first started coaching and when I was a player, there's 3 other guys that I played for and coached with that are on that wall down there too. So I think I kind of coattailed all those guys at some level, or learned a lot from them, a lot of lessons. But if it wasn't for Coach Jones, I wouldn't have been the businessman that I was. I think the father that I am, or any of that stuff. He stuck by me when it was the lowest. Derek knows me about this. I'm not afraid to share it. I'm a 18-year recovering alcoholic. Football and sports and high school sports are my therapy. They always have been, in a humblest manner, in a really emotional manner. I need the kids as much as they need me.
Absolutely.
For all this every day. So there is a lot of love and passion that goes in it for me, and I'm just blessed beyond belief and be able to coach these kids every day.
Coach, on that, you couldn't have said it any better. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. First of all, I want to say this to you. Your heart comes through in everything that you say.
Thank you.
I mean, I feel it. It's hard to feel it through the screen, but I feel it through the screen, right? And I have to tell you this because,
well, now you know.
We've been doing I don't know how many. Derek knows the number of episodes of this, but
43.
Okay, 43 of this, and I've run a lot of podcasts, and this is the highest, by far, most consecutive viewers that we've had ongoing the whole entire time. And I can tell you this, we've done a lot of great ones with a lot of great coaches and different people from different walks of life too.
All over.
All over. We've been at 200 consecutive viewers almost the whole entire episode. And I can tell you, as me and Derek have done, we've had some great guests on. Usually it's an hour to 2 hour, anywhere between. But usually around an hour. Most of them go. Obviously, it's been an hour and 30-minute podcast. To be able to have people captivated for that amount of time, I could tell you, is unbelievable. It's a tribute to your passion, not just for the sport, but for literally the players you coach and life. That's what I love most. Like I can feel the passion you have for everything you do, and you talk about being. There's different types of rich, right? Obviously, I'm a business owner. You're a business owner. There's financial wealth that you can gain from owning a business, but waking up every day and enjoying what you do and having the passion for it. That to me, and a lot of people have a hard time understanding this, but that to me is the ultimate rich. Like there's no day, that I don't wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to this today. Every day's a little different. I look forward to it, right? There are people that make millions and millions of dollars and they dread.
They're miserable.
Day. So it's a tribute to you, Coach. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Money helps, but man, I'll tell you, I love Butler. It was, and I just give back because my wife and I are just, we're truly blessed. We have 3 great, successful kids. Money is, we worked hard for what we have.
Yes, you did.
But, there's nothing makes me more proud that, Butler's going to be a top 50 small school in the state very soon for the work that we're doing. But my wife and I are very grateful to, 2 street kids that really had nothing. But because of our coaches and our teachers and the community, when you grew up in Butler back when I did, you it was a village,
Yeah.
And listen, the best thing I could say too, from a rich standpoint, is that I'll be married 40 years in May to my wife, who I started dating at Butler High School. I saw her in gym class when I was 16 years old.
Smart man.
And we're still together. And we joke about this all the time, and Derek will tell you this, that I'm famous in a lot of places except for my kitchen.
Yeah, that's
right.
It.
And the guys that coach with me, I'm not famous in our coach's office either. So,
just another guy.
I'm sitting on here and we have a group chat with our coaches, and I'm actually getting destroyed right now, like 7 texts in by some of these guys that I'm waiting to respond.
But you gotta understand, this was the atmosphere that, and now Dave, and look, you've heard me talk about it 1,000 times, and how I'll be blue and gold until the time I die, and just everything. I owe everything to guys like Coach and how they supported us and just coached us different and set us up for it's a reason I still call him Coach. It's the reason that, he'll be in every Hall of Fame speech I could ever make if I get there. He's just the guy that's really mentored, on and off the field for a long time. And it's, it's really, now you can see, a little bit of why I coach the way I coach and how certain elements have seeped into how I do it, and just the whole overall viewpoint of, how I feel about certain things. It all comes from these guys that put the work in every single day. And look, one thing that a lot of people don't know is, Coach Mickens, he don't take a dime to coach. And that's been for a long time. He's been a volunteer guy for as long as I can remember. And, Dave, what it is at a small program like that, every coach matters, right? And if I can pay a guy, and it's just, he gives back so much.
I will say one thing too. If I had a chance to talk to a bunch of high school players, which I get that chance pretty much every day, but a small group, if I ever had a chance to talk to a large group of high school players, I would really just tell them one thing. You're going to live in a community someday, right? And you're going to move to a community and you're going to have children, hopefully, and a wife. It's really your obligation to try to make that community as, the best you can possibly make it. Because if you want to be rich and you want to be wealthy, be important in your community, do good things for your community. And there's nothing that pays you back better than that. The Education Foundation for the Butler and Bloomingdale schools is completely my passion now. I don't work as much as I used to, obviously.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Except for, I own a couple thoroughbred racehorses, which makes me lose my
mind.
I think being an important member of the community, when you leave Butler and you go live in California, be an important person in your community, and that doesn't mean politics or anything, just something good for your community. Do one thing to make your community better. And if everybody did that, things would be a lot better, to be honest with you.
No doubt about it. Well, Coach, we'll let you go. It's been great having you on. I enjoyed every minute of. I'm sure Derek has enjoyed every.
It's truly my honor. I really appreciate that you guys wanted to have me on. It's my honor. Thank you. Coach, good luck to everybody.
Thanks so much, Coach.
You, Coach. We'll talk soon, buddy.
Take care, guys.
Love you as always.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bud.
All right. Wow. That was, there's nothing more that has to be said. First of all, phenomenal podcast.
Now you get why I am the way I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it's an amazing place. It's
just Dave, what I always say, it's just different.
Yeah, yes. And the investment in everybody in the community is different. So that's if every community, if you think about it, had some level of it doesn't have to be the same level.
No.
Some level of investment the way that Butler has in its community, the way that people invest in the community. I think a lot of places would be a lot better off if that was indeed the case.
But you're never gonna, that's so difficult to get people like that, especially with the quote unquote me culture that we have today, to get everybody to really buy in on such a level, you know what I mean? To be like, this is
for
what
so
it's all about.
So many years. So
I always talk about the sustainability
for so many years.
You're talking, he's been there for 40 something years, right? And then before Coach, Jack Davies was there, and it was the same kind of thing. Like, you talk to his players and they swear by him. Like he's still that God. It's
right.
But it's about the buy-in. It's about, and look, I've seen Coach Mick change in terms of, look, he talked about his struggles off the field, right? Like, so I've seen all of that kind of transition, like this, and he said it best, like, I need them as much as they need me, right? Like, and that's what I feel like coaching should be about. If you're not invested in your players, right? And especially now where all of these kids want that love and all that stuff, like, well, this is like, yeah, you get that but it's also, this is genuine. This is real. I'm not just schmoozing or whatever. So you can
schmooze you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not just telling you what you want to hear so I can get $75 to go throw a football, And you look at a guy like that with all those rings and he barely talked about football itself.
Yeah, yes, that's a common theme if you noticed in the podcast. A lot of the guests that we've had on, they're obviously they're accomplished in what their field, right? But it's more than just that. It's much more than that. And I think that, to me, I mean, you notice it, like, beyond the sports aspect. Obviously, we're doing most of this is about sports, right? But beyond the sports aspect, in order to be successful, it has to be more than, it can't just be wins and losses, like,
or X's and O's, or
X's
footwork,
and
or
O's.
there's so
people.
much. There's
Yeah,
so
it's
much
people.
here, and there's so much here,
Yeah.
right? Like, you have to be, and look,
And that real talk's important too, right? That real talk, like that, like, okay, not everything,
like, hey, dude, you might not be this guy,
or
right?
you need
and
to
they
fix
might
this,
hate you
or
for
you
saying,
need
like,
to,
right, or just even like, hey, we're competing, we're going at it, and we're
Yep.
back and forth, but what'd you say? You loved it, right? And
Right.
the practice, yo, we're good. Boom, later.
we're good. That's such an important.
Isn't that dope?
I
Isn't that
listened.
so
One
cool?
of the first things I wrote down was the consciously going on and everybody shaking hands after
like
practice.
a physical, like, and look, we don't have to get into lines and walk down the thing.
No, but I'm saying it's a conscious thing.
Fist
Yes.
pound, like, we're good. You
Yes.
never want to. It's the same thing with, like, coaching. Like he said, like, I may get all over you and do whatever and say all this stuff, but I'm sure I'm going to come up to you after practice and make sure you don't
That's
leave
right.
thinking a certain way.
That's a big part too. The consciously understanding, okay, because you never want someone to just, there's somebody.
Dude, you never
People
know.
have a bad day, right? They walk away and they're pissed off, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with for 5 days, right? Which you could have easily solved by going up and giving
done.
someone a pound, right?
Correct.
It's okay, it's all good. We move on. We're on to the next day, and
Right.
and those or something going on. Hey, you want to talk to me about it? Is there something going on?
Right.
Like,
And
I
listen,
remember,
and like you said, develop those relationships where they want to talk to you about it.
right?
You know what I mean? Like you said, coach your position. And it's a very different, it's just like, again, it's different there because, look, you got Coach Luciani, who's been there since 1994. Like, and
Right.
now all of a lot of players come back and
Right.
coach again. Like, I played for Scott Brown, right? Like, he graduated at Princeton. He's got a job, financial advisor, yet he's coming to practice to coach me for what? Because he loves what he was doing. Right. And that was the passion part of it. And now you're getting coached and you're doing all of these types of things. And it just, now you're, okay, well, what are we struggling with in life? Right. Like, oh, okay. I mean, look, you're talking a small group 1 program, sustained winning, but on and off the field. Now he talks about, like, and look, honestly, like, he didn't even justify it enough how much he does, like, with money and stuff for the school systems, building labs here, or, transitioning this here. I mean, come on, what group 1 school has blue turf? I mean, it's the little things like that, but you're not getting blue turf unless the community buys into it.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. No, it was fabulous. That was a great podcast.
It's good.
We'll let it ride from there.
Viewership going up.
Hey, viewership's going up. On that note, we'll see you next time.